Unlock the power of your mind. This is Provocative Enlightenment with Eldon Taylor.
And thank you for joining us today, and welcome. This is an hour devoted to learning something more, not just about the world of shoes and ships and sealing wax, but about how, what, and why we think and believe as we do. An hour for the open-minded, willing to challenge some of those old ideas behind what we think we know, who we are, and who we might become. I'm Eldon Taylor, and this is Provocative Enlightenment. Now, we have some sad news today. Yesterday, Ariel Ford, who was originally scheduled for today's show, posted this, quote, Debbie Ford, my beautiful, brilliant, and very brave sister, made her transition last night into the waiting arms of her ancestors and guardian angels. She told Brian and I she was tired and ready to go. She had accomplished her mission, even though she would have liked more time with her son Bo, her family, her devoted Julie, gazillions of friends, and many beloved co-workers. Close quote. Now, Debbie was here on the show with us not too long ago, and her enthusiasm for life, together with her unrelenting love energy, was literally contagious. We will miss her. For those of you interested, in lieu of flowers, she wished for the support of collectiveheart.org. That's www.thecollectiveheart, as one word, thecollectiveheart.org. We will miss her. All right, our chat room is open, and my partner, Ravinder, awaits you there now. You can log on by going to Eldon Taylor, ELDONTAYLOR.com/chat. Now, Rav, would you like to say anything about Debbie?
It was really sad. She was very much loved. She, she taught everything that she had learned in life and made it easier for everyone else. The world has lost a great soul, and we bless her and her family.
Indeed we do. We shall all miss her. All right, every week I read some of your letters as our way of paying homage to the very important role you play in making this show successful. Not long ago, Major Ed Dames was our guest, and we discussed remote viewing. Dames debuted a forecast on our show that asserted solar activity this year would barbecue the Earth. He has been correct in the past with forecasts such as the acquisition of nuclear weaponry by North Korea. From time to time, I still get letters about this show, and due to Korea's successful nuclear underground test last week, we received many more. Laura wrote, quote, several months ago you hosted an ex-CIA agent on your show who warned that solar flares would soon be causing mass destruction all over Earth. Ever since I heard that show, I have been terrified. Today I woke up to learn about North Korea setting off a nuclear bomb, which your guest on the show warned was a precursor to the solar flares. I don't know what to do. There isn't a day that I haven't thought about this. It's totally ruining my life, and I wonder if you might have any advice. I answered Laura this way. The guest you're speaking about is Ed Dames, and he has been wrong far more times than right. His statement about North Korea had already been fulfilled when he was on my show. Indeed, he stated that North Korea would have nuclear weapons before they officially announced the same in 2009. Remember that they withdrew from the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty in 2003. So the underground test that just took place is not connected to Dames' warning at all. Dames was brought to the show to explain remote viewing and our government's work with it. He surprised everyone with his announcement regarding solar activity this year. NASA has stated that this year will be an active year, but not unlike many we have had in the past. I personally am not worried for whatever that might be worth. I have seen so many doom and gloom prophets in my lifetime and historically that I take it all with a grain of salt. Living in fear is unnecessary. Each of us can only do what we can do, and the rest is up to God. What will be is an effective antidote to worry. My advice, turn it over and trust in a higher power. Okay. Last week, our show featured Anna Maria Hemingway, and we discussed life after death. Cindy wrote, loved Hemingway's last message. I received wisdom while appreciating nature. I spend a great deal of time hiking, running, and marveling at all of nature while I'm listening to your show. The best medicine on the planet. Great show. Love having all my beliefs challenged. Divadoc commented, I love this show. Can't believe it has been 3 years since she was on. Thanks for all the great show and chat. You really do have some truly great activity and conversations in the chat room, Rav. Why don't you remind everyone that might not catch our show during live time how they can view the chat room when they listen to a rebroadcast?
Yeah, I mean, you can always watch that. If you just go to eldontaylor.com/chat, you can simply replay it and watch the whole thing. And then, yeah, you'll get to see some great conversation. We do some chatting and some fun stuff in the chat room, but oftentimes there are some serious questions that get asked in there as well. So it's a perfect place to check out.
You very often also have our guests in the chat room.
We do.
And very often a video that is played during the break featuring our guests, such as what we'll have today. All right, Carlene wrote, I recently bought Self-Hypnosis and Subliminal Technology. It is a well-written and easy to understand. The first time I listened to the CD, I became so relaxed that I slept for 11 hours. I normally do not have restful sleep. I have tried CDs from other authors with no luck. Eldon Taylor is my new go-to guy for self-help. I kind of like that. What do you think?
You are my go-to guy for everything.
All right, Denise wrote, thank you so much for these MP3s. Times have been hard here as of late, and the free MP3s have been a blessing. May you be blessed many times over for the help you have given to me and others who enjoy your programs. Well, thank you, Denise. And for all of you out there, remember that you will find a number of free InnerTalk MP3 programs on my site that are there for the downloading. These are not samples. They are the real deal. This is the patented and scientifically proven InnerTalk technology. Repeated double-blind studies have demonstrated their efficacy. They are the real deal. So, this technology can assist in change from the inside out. We think of our attempts here as just a part of our own Pay It Forward efforts. So there's no reason to wait. You can get yours today. Just go to InnerTalk, INNERTALK.com. Choose free programs from the left-hand navigation pane. It really can't be much easier. All right, that's all the time we have for letters today, but I do invite you to opine by sending your email to eldon@eldontaylor.com or by joining me on Facebook. We can't get all of your letters on the air, but they do impact our programming. And once again, I both appreciate and thank you for your feedback and continued support. Now to today's show. Take 2, your guide to creating happy endings and new beginnings. Our guest today is someone to be truly admired, not because she is perfect, but because she so perfectly illuminates the rebooting process. Think about that. What is it to reboot? A quick look at the dictionary, and we discover that reboot is defined this way: to turn a computer or operating system off and then on again, to restart. Okay, how exactly are we to turn our personal lives, our operating systems, off in order to restart them? Well, we'll ask our guest that today. So let me introduce our guest, not that any of you don't already know who she is. Emmy Award-winning Leeza Gibbons is one of the best-known and most well-loved pop culture icons, still on the air and still at the top of her game. As a wife, mother, and businesswoman, she has always shared her experiences with her audience. The spectrum of Leeza's career in entertainment and news media, combined with her stunning hands on advocacy for healthcare, wellness, and caregivers, is diverse and impressive. Her on-camera hosting dominance in entertainment news and talk show arenas ranges from the most popular entertainment news show in history, Entertainment Tonight, to her award-winning daytime show, Leeza, to currently the syndicated TV news magazine show America Now and the weekly TV news show My Generation on PBS. Recognized as a social entrepreneur, Leeza has become one of the leading voices for issues facing family caregivers. You're going to love her. You probably already do. So let's get her in here. Welcome to Provocative Enlightenment, Leeza Gibbons.
I'm so happy to be with you, Eldon. Thank you so very much. What a treat and a joy for me.
Oh, indeed, it's our pleasure. You know, before we get into your book, we'd like to learn a little more about Leeza Gibbons, the personal side. One of your mottos has been to follow the advice of Eleanor Roosevelt and do something that frightens you every day. So what are you currently doing to fulfill this ambition?
You know, as an author of 300 books as you are, as a scientist and philosopher, this is your comfort zone. This is your bliss. This is your gift to the world. And for someone like me, I've had wonderful experiences, Eldon, and I've been blessed to achieve a lot of beautiful goals. But jumping into this arena, writing a book and exposing the things about myself that I hope will be helpful to other people really was scary to me. So I'm in the midst of the thing that frightens me right now, and that's what turns the heat up, and that's probably one of the biggest parts of the reinvention process. I think that we only fall in love with ourselves when we do those things, which when we run straight towards the fear. And that's how we gain respect for who we are, and that's the really cool place that I find myself having arrived at right now.
I love it. I love your book too, by the way. And you know, in all candor, it is a bit of a tell-all. There is a, well, I don't want to say mea culpa, but there is some interesting revelations that you give in your book. I think everybody's going to want to read the book just to hear those tidbits. But before we go a lot further, I have a rather unusual question for you.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. Dee Wallace and I have spoken about this a couple of times, and Dee suggested that we should all have a song of life. You know, and hopefully the song of life is not something like, you know, you done me wrong. All right? So the question is, forced to choose one, just one, what is Leeza Gibbons' song of life?
Oh, I love the question. I think it would be Brown Eyed Girl. I'm a Southerner. I'm from South Carolina, and you know we tend to have the same songs on our playlist throughout life because that's comfort. And I do so much work with people who are losing their memories, as my mother and my grandmother both died of Alzheimer's disease. We know that music, you know, is so deeply embedded in our emotional DNA. It is the last thing to leave us. And then that song, I mean, that was just my gut reaction, Brown Eyed Girl. I am a Brown Eyed Girl.
I love it. It's a great song, too. Maybe we'll just have a clip of that. We'll try and get on the air before the show's over. Larry King once told you that you improve the room whenever you walk into it. What do you think he meant by that?
I think Larry is gracious and kind. That's such a lovely compliment. Gosh, I hope that he meant what we feel when anybody is sharing energy and space with us that we jive with. You know, we're all vibrational energy, and when we get a bad vibe from somebody, we aren't jiving with that person. So I hope that maybe my energy is accommodating to a lot of other energy. Maybe that's it. But Larry's very sweet, and my gosh, what a pro! Like you, what a pro!
Well, now that's a very nice compliment, but you're not going to suck me on that one, okay? So I'm not going to get lighter on the questions. Greta Garbo and shorter legs. When you look at YouTube, the first thing you see is all of these different videos about your legs. The best legs on TV. Did you ever insure your legs or think about doing so?
You know, my colleague, Mary Hart, actually did that Greta Garbo number, and she got, Eldon, it was the best bit of publicity. For one day, she had her legs insured by Lloyd's of London for $1 million. And it was only for one day, but it lasted decades of publicity. And when I first started at Entertainment Tonight, I decided that one of the things I needed to be on my way to what I wanted was to be flexible with my dream. And I never intended to be the, quote, second fiddle to Mary Hart. But I thought, okay, wait, let me reframe that, because here's a great place for me to stand out. Here's a great place for me to show what I have that's different. But what I didn't have that was different were legs. And, man, E.T. was all about the legs. So I said, all right, don't fight it, light it. And so there I was right there with the legs buffed up and shined up and miles of heels. And I just decided to go with it. And I still smile about it, because my kids, I have 2 adult kids and a 15-year-old. And the 15-year-old especially, he will see like reruns of some old show and go, and they were talking about your legs. That's disgusting.
Well, now I have a 14-year-old, and he looked at the jacket of your new book, and of course the back cover is you're showing a little leg, nothing like what you would think would be inappropriate, but he said, wow, she's got nice legs.
Love
and
him.
He's 14-year-old. So I think the difference is, your son, it's his mom,
Right.
My son, wow, that's a good, anyway, all right.
Eldon, I have to tell you a funny story. My son, years ago, I hosted a series with Arnold Shapiro, the famed producer from Scared Straight, and we had done a series of really great documentaries for teens. And one of them, we did The Truth About Drinking, and one of them was The Truth About Sex. Well, they are apparently still running this series in schools. And my son, I had no way of knowing that, and neither did my son. And so they're having, human sexuality class or whatever it is, and they're playing this video, and his friend says, oh, my gosh, that's your mom. I can't imagine anything worse than having your mom come on saying, here's the truth about sex. It's just got to be a horrifying moment.
Yeah, or something. I don't think, I'm not going to go down that one with you. Before we get into your book, Leeza, I want to talk a little bit about your nonprofit corporation, why you set it up and what your vision statement is. You mentioned your mother and your grandmother earlier. You're on the cover of Life Extension magazine this month, and there's a very nice article about you and your efforts fighting Alzheimer's disease. Please share this part of your life with us, and be sure to tell us all about your website, Leeza's Place.
Thank you so much for the question. This is my passion and my purpose. And I was just reading today, actually, something that Dr. Oz had said, that despite the best science, a heart doesn't continue to beat without a purpose. And I found that to be so validating and so lovely. It's something that when my mother started disappearing memory by memory, having seen her mom, my grandmother, die of Alzheimer's, she then had the same fate. Our family, we were like all families. We were frightened and lost and just sort of numb by the fear, and we felt so hopeless. And so we thought, well, what do we wish we'd had that would have helped us? What do we wish, existed? And that's what we created in the world. And so I formed a nonprofit, and we began offering free psychosocial support services. So care for the caregiver, the husbands and wives and sons and daughters who, because of the incredible burden of caregiving, and there are blessings too, but the burdens can be overwhelming. Because of that, they are many times more vulnerable, more fragile, sicker, if you will, than the diagnosed loved ones. It's such a depleting journey. And so we looked at how can we help these family members call on their strength, call on their courage and summon up their strength and feel more capable and more confident for this very difficult road. And so we started opening Leeza's Care Connection and Leeza's Place, really modeled after my mom's kitchen, where the door's always open and the arms are always open wide for a hug.
That's wonderful, and that's very commendable. You were appointed by Governor Schwarzenegger, in a bit of a controversial appointment, to serve on the California Stem Cell Board. What's your position, Leeza, regarding the farming of cells leading to the development of organs, including perhaps the potential of human cloning? I mean, I saw just this morning a piece in Science Daily regarding stem cell-based bioartificial tissues and organs, and we're to the point where we're actually developing these, and surgeries are taking place, and this was a very controversial issue during the Bush administration, the nature of stem cells, how far would it go, the ethical, the source of stem cells. What is your position in all of that?
Well, I'm happy to answer the question, but let me back up first by saying that with the California Institute for Regenerative Medicine, the Stem Cell Agency was formed when the voters passed Prop 71 to basically be more aggressive about funding the best science to get treatments and cures into the lives of patients and their families sooner. And this was a bipartisan effort. There was, everyone from, at that time, Nancy Reagan and Michael J. Fox and a myriad of people from the science world, from the entertainment community, all standing together to say, we want to not wait for the government, for example, and we want to be more aggressive. We just want to be more innovative. And so that set aside, this bond initiative, and our job at the agency is to fund the science. So it's all about alleviating human suffering and disease, and it is not exclusively human embryonic stem cells. So I think there's a little bit of not confusion, but I think people just aren't as educated on that as we could be. But as far as human cloning and all the other uses that I think tend to understandably and appropriately frighten us, my personal position on that doesn't ever come into play with the Stem Cell Agency because that's not what we do. But my personal position is, I'm really not qualified to know how much of a realistic danger that may be because I'm one of the patient advocates on this board. It's a 29-person board, and there are only 9 of us who are patient advocates. And so, Eldon, I think that we're not ready as a society to take major steps into some of these areas that challenge our moral, ethical, religious beliefs. I think we teeter on those things to a place where it's so uncomfortable. But I do know that if we don't, in my opinion, if we don't push science and if we don't explore the outer reaches of science, then we're stuck with this kind of inertia of this veil of safety and security that isn't going to get us anywhere. And most of the great cures have come from us. All the great cures, I would say, had come from us pushing.
It's true. Now, in your position of advocacy, of course, the funding, you do have an influence. I guess that's why I asked the question over the funding, however small that might be. You have more projects presented to you than you have the ability to fund, and the priority by which that funding is chosen, you have some input on. That's why the question.
Sure. That's a position that we take very seriously, and the board is very diverse for that reason. And for example, my seat is for Alzheimer's advocacy, but and my role that I love so much is to push for more awareness and more research in that area. However, grants that come before us that aren't deemed to be the best science, that aren't deemed to have the best outcomes for success, are not going to be ones that get funded, no matter how much I want to, shake my pom-poms for Alzheimer's.
Okay. All right. Listen, we've got a hard break coming up. I don't want the computer to just suddenly play us off. So when we come back, I'm going to ask you the big question. We're going to get right into your book. You heard the setup piece. So I want to know how you turn off the system to reboot it. That's where we'll begin. We're speaking with Leeza Gibbons about her life and new book, Take Two, Your Guide to Creating Happy Endings and New Beginnings. If you're not already in our chat room, now's the time to get there. We have a movie of our guest today. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after a few words from some of our friends.
Unlock the power of your mind. This is Provocative Enlightenment with Eldon Taylor.
And welcome back. If you just joined us, we're speaking with Leeza Gibbons about her life and her new book, Take Two, Your Guide to Creating Happy Endings and New Beginnings. And it's now a New York Times best-selling book. It's a great book. You're going to want to read this book. It's a fun book as well. But before we get back to the show, I want to invite you to join me at the Hay House I Can Do It conference in Vancouver, Canada. I'll get it said. Many of our favorite authors will also be there. So please set April 20th and 21st aside for a weekend you won't forget. Check the details out at hayhouse.com. All right, let's get back to the show. Before the break, Leeza, I promised you I was going to ask you, how do we turn our lives off in order to reboot them?
Well, that's the definitive question, isn't it? I think that when I was writing this book and arriving at this point where I thought, wow, here's something that I've been experiencing in my life, and it took a couple of years for me to realize I'm beginning again. I need to be someone else in my life to show up in my best interest now. And there were a few things that had changed for me. So by way of answering your question, I think that the first thing is to find your story. I'm a storyteller. I've always been a reporter on radio and television. My mom is the one who helped me identify myself back when I was a young girl as a storyteller, and so that label has kind of stuck with me. So for me, it all began with not really thinking so much about what I was turning off, but what I was turning on. And I had to go back and find my story and figure out which parts I wanted to rewrite. We forget the simple reality that, this is a big old epic adventure, and we are the authors of this book. And we can start at any time for any reason and rewrite it, recast yourself in your movie and create the life that you want to have. And I think we need to demystify what this means. So when I'm saying take two, like in my business, when you have another take, in your business, when you're saying, okay, wait a minute, I flubbed that up, I'm going to do another take. Sometimes it's a really simple thing. It's a tweak. It's a little tune-up. Sometimes your take two may be a major transformation on the way to take charge of the next act, the next chapter in your life. But I don't want people to think that this is a big course study, a major overwhelming task. I know people are time-starved. So think about the information in this book, as you say, Eldon. It's fun, it's simple stuff, it's bite-sized little chunks. Because I believe that the reason why people don't start over and don't discover their story and identify their own personal operating system is it seems overwhelming. But, great ideas, great things start, with small steps, and great people do too. So start with the little small steps that are going to, it's just moving forward and taking that journey and saying it takes a second to say, look, I want more. That's it. I want more. And then you begin to craft the strategies to help you get there.
I love it. And I love how you say that, too. You believe that balance is a bogus idea. You want to flesh that one out for us?
Oh, I really do. I really do. Balance is a myth, and I think that we have to join hands in busting this balance myth because it makes us feel like failures. And if you're looking for the middle of the seesaw in your life, you're going to be in constant struggle with yourself because I don't think it's there. I think it is vapor, and I've reframed that. I don't look at balancing my time anymore. I look at investing my time, and I look at navigating through the river of my life. If balance implies that there is equal time and equal portions, and that things should matter the same because they're going to all equal out, and it doesn't work that way. If you're a single mom and you're taking night classes, that's not balancing out your mommy time in the way that you ultimately would like to, perhaps, but it is investing in your ability to create a better lifestyle for your children, to demonstrate your own journey towards personal growth and bettering yourself, and your kids get to see that. I just feel like if you think about how am I investing the time, and I've noticed that I look at people who have something that I want. Who are the successful people? What are the clues that they're leaving? What are they doing that demonstrates how they got there, and can I do that? And I looked at how many successful people anticipate that there are going to be challenges and setbacks. They plan for it. So I've now said, all right, I'm going to plan for feeling out of balance, because I spent decades looking for balance. I never found it. So I said, well, I'm just going to plan that sometimes I'm going to feel that I'm weighted on one side or the other, knowing that I'm investing and it's going to swing back. So I think of it more as a pendulum and more as investing my time.
So you get a little chuckle when somebody signs a salutation that says peace, balance, and harmony?
I think there's harmony. I do think there's harmony. I think those are the things that we really do have to define for ourselves. And I think that whenever we start out on any path thinking that we've already failed, hello, what is the point of that? So, that's what it was doing to me. So if it's helpful for anybody to reframe this balance thing, if it's helpful for you to keep going after it, pursue it, baby. But for me, that was one of the things that I said, I'm calling for a redo here. And it was a shift in the way I looked at things.
I think one of the things that sets your book off is that, or apart from the crowd, if you will, so many self-help books have all these technical ways in which you can improve yourself, and we get into a whole psychobabble. You come away with a feeling that you really need a graduate degree in psychology or something. And I think one of the things that you do so well in your book is make it plain and clear how easy it is for a person to just simply make a new choice and begin to invest their time that way. But we all have driving forces, and these driving forces can sometimes, push us in different directions. So how does that all come into play?
Well, I think that when you're ready to get into the better business, that all of the instruction shows up, which we well know. And so the words and the simple approach in my book, or the much more esoteric scientific approach in other books, it all leads to the same place, and you're not going to hear any of it until you've made the decision that you really want to take charge. And one of the things that I love about your work is the value you put on being optimistic, and so do I. I think it's so crucial to anybody's rebooting. Is that, and that's a choice. We say every day we get to, we have however many 50,000 thoughts or whatever it is. You get to decide how you're going to color your world, and I think that rose is a very underrated color, and optimists just fare better. So, making a very simple choice to understand what allows you to unlock the optimist in you. We talked about operating systems. I love that terminology for this discussion, because I think you have to find in your operating system where are your, what I call your sanity sanctuaries, and what are the things that you do that make you feel confident, capable, secure, nourished, whole, all of those wonderful things that make you feel like you and like you have the energy and the power to go out and create change in your life. So for me, they're really simple things, and as I suspect they are for most people. But that's one of the things that I learned from studying success from other individuals was, they tended to book time to replenish and renourish. They tended to create points in their day or in their week that would get them back to their central core. And I think that we're so overbusy And, we're all in this constant state of thriving and striving and achieving. And I had to say to myself, okay, stop achieving and start receiving. Because when I can receive, then I feel more like me, then I soften and I get less edgy, less obnoxious, really, in my path. And so that was a sanity sanctuaries for me, or whenever I can create time to be quiet. So it's my bath, it's my short walks in the morning. There are things that are my absolutes, and I don't apologize for them. I carve them out, and I make sure to do them. And then on a bigger scale, I make sure to create time for play. Isn't it funny how we forget how to play, Eldon?
Yes, and unfortunate in truth.
And because the play is, I think if you're being static and the same makes you boring and bitter. Well, who are the people we like to be around? They're probably people that are more spontaneous. And I think if you have to force yourself to be more spontaneous, which sounds kind of counterintuitive, because that's it goes against the very definition of spontaneity. But if you think of it in terms of play and maybe even being a little uncomfortable with, I don't care if you're rich. I mentioned in the book, like if you work in cubicles in an office, wadding up some paper and throwing something over the next cubicle, something that's going to break out. The people that you love in your life that you like to be with are the ones that have a lighter energy. But sometimes our own energy gets so stale, and we don't like to be with ourselves. So how the heck can we expect other people to value us and honor us when we haven't even created that space for us?
True. I love it. Stop achieving and start receiving. That's a motto. That's a good one. Everybody can write down. Everyone can think of. This is the path I'm going to take this week. But you talk about relationships and stagnation, and in the context of driving forces, it's not at all uncommon for people nowadays to find themselves feeling that they've outgrown the person they're with, and or no longer attracted to that person, and all kinds of other things. And I don't mean this to be insensitive, but you've been married 4 times. How many times do you think we can reboot the system? How many times do you think we can discover a new you and go on and still feel good about our process?
As many times as we tell ourselves we can. And
Well,
I don't want to be cavalier. No one, as a young girl or a young boy, says, and I'm going to grow up and be divorced. That's not part of anybody's happily ever after. No matter how inevitable that choice may be, you're married to a criminal, an abuser, whatever, and you have no other choice, it still doesn't take away the disappointment, the emptiness, the feelings of failure. This is nobody's vision for themselves, but there's no statute of limitations on love. And this is stating the obvious. My choices in relationship were directly reflective of what I thought I was worth and what I thought I deserved. We get exactly the love we think we deserve. And
right, but I think, what I wanted you to really deal with is you have this construct in your book that I think is invaluable about creating happy endings. And even when, the situation is a difficult situation and maybe we have made the wrong choice and we've undervalued ourselves, there are still ways for us to close that in a positive way. And I love how you treat that. So that's really what I'm asking you. How do we do that?
Well, I have a couple of F words that are important in my life, and they're flexibility and forgiveness. And I needed them both big time to find a peaceful place for my relationships that ended. And you'll notice I didn't say my relationships that failed. They ended. And I made choices that did not serve. And I finally made a great choice based on reintroducing myself to me and learning to bring in someone who could celebrate the changes in me. Because you mentioned earlier, Eldon, about thinking we've outgrown someone. And, I think that's a very common feeling. And I wonder if it fits as much as it's just a place for us to put the feelings of, I'm not getting nurtured. I'm not being nourished by this relationship. I'm not getting what I need out of it.
Right.
I don't really know if it has so much to do with us growing at different rates, but accepting that, change is the constant that we need to figure out how to deal with in relationship. But as far as starting over, you can't begin again until you've had, one end. And so looking at forgiving yourself for what you may frame as a failure, forgiving the other person for, either cheating on you or not being enough or not giving you what you need and whatever else we put around it, is really important. And I know that sounds so easy. We're going to talk about forgiveness. But it is impossible to create a new beginning until you've been able to forgive and really put that beautiful bow of a happy ending, whether it concluded neatly, because breakups are rarely neat, but you do get to arrive at a place where you say, I've done everything that I can do to make this a happy ending for me. The other person may not join you there, and I think you have to release that because it really is the thing that will prevent you from moving forward. And, like so many people listening to us right now, I was very angry, very closed off, kind of righteous, really, about my position in my marriage ending and feeling so wronged. And, all of those things were irrelevant in the end because it had ended. And for me to begin again, I could not carry forward all of that baggage. Louise Smith said you can't reach for tomorrow if your hands are filled with yesterday's junk. And I really had my hands filled with yesterday's junk.
Another word they should add, you should add, somebody should add, your publishers should add to your acumen. It's called courage. You mentioned, relationships we don't get nurtured in, and because we're not getting that nurturing, perhaps we then begin to think there's a fine line, isn't there, between codependence and a codependent expectation in a relationship and that self-responsible position that you outlined in your last statement.
Sure. Yes, I think that's absolutely right. I think there's for me, there was staying too long based on some of those things that you just mentioned, and thinking, well, if I am more, if I try harder, if I become more, I can overcompensate for what's not there. And that just in my case, that simply wasn't true. And I do think when one person changes, I don't think both people have to change. That when one person changes, the other will relate differently and act in kind in response to that change. And many times that's enough. That's the thing that's the spark plug that's needed. But I think it was probably arrogant of me to think, well, if I just try harder and if I care more and if I invest more in the potential, that was a little bit narcissistic.
Yeah, but it also is question begging, because when you entertain that idea, you have to ask yourself, when do I reboot as opposed to rebuild? How do you answer that? Is there a place a signal that tells you that?
I think it's different, and I think it's deeply personal, and I think to find it, we have to really have conversation with ourselves differently. If you're a person like I was, I ran from pain by getting busier. If I'm ever getting over busy, that must mean something was really haunting me. And if we're not ever in conversation with ourselves, then we're not going to know when that moment is. So I think we have to, and expect that the shadow sides of you are going to talk back. With any change, the universal law is there's going to be resistance, right? So
Right.
Expect that you're going to get pushback, but you have to begin with those questions of what's working well, what do I still need to do? Get down to some really basic truths for you and understand where your absolutes are. And if you don't know your story, then you don't know who am I today. And maybe you have grown to a place where your absolutes, your lines in the sand, are very different, and you forgot to tell your partner. I think that we sometimes are standing on the chair with the noose around our neck, and, the poor people around us are like, what's wrong with her? And we're so filled with all this resentment, but we set it up that way. And we set up our lives so that the people around us don't see the changes in us. We forget to go back to the computer analogy with the operating system, we forget to download the people closest to us with the new information that teaches them how to treat us. So if we forget to say, I'm growing in this direction, this has shifted in my energy, this has changed for me, how the heck are they supposed to know? They can't intuitively, that's a brilliant fairy tale, they can't intuitively understand the changes in us if we don't communicate and share that, and we don't understand it if we aren't in conversation with ourselves. So I think that really is where it all has to begin.
Very true. I like your computer metaphor, but how do you believe a person goes about changing or updating their operating system? I mean, if we use the language of computer programmers, their lingo, we have GIGO, the garbage in, garbage out. And that lingers tenaciously in people's subconscious mind. New research shows us that 90% of your decisions are made at a subconscious level. How do you suggest people go in and change that operating system?
I think by expecting it's going to happen in, 5% increments. You can make the decision as a massive sweeping one, a simple one. The I want more, enough, no more, I'm starting over, whatever. But you're going to build it slowly. If you go, let's just stay with this then. So maybe you need to delete some files, and I think this is really an important part of the reboot process. If your computer's running slowly, maybe there's some files that need to be deleted. Chances are there are people in your life that you need to let go of. And out of a displaced sense of loyalty or because we value and honor that in our culture, whatever reason, you are hanging on to all these sort of negative Nelly types that are toxic. And they're, the greatest gift you can give yourself is associating with and befriending a higher quality person. So if you are dragging along people that are stealing your light and framing your life in a way that's not supporting your change, you just have got to let go of them. And we are afraid of that because we don't want people not to like us. And but by saying yes to them, you're saying no to yourself. So I write in the book about how do you decide who to say yes to and things to say yes to, and I encourage people to look at yes as standing for your empowerment system. If this is something that empowers you, what do you need to feel empowered? You need to feel valued and confident and worthwhile and capable and resourceful, whatever the things are that you need to feel empowered in your life. If there are people around you that are giving you that, then those are the ones to bring to the next level, or find people that have not been that for you and reach higher up towards them. The others, let go of, because when you say yes to them, you're saying no to you, and when you say no to you, you lose respect for yourself. And if you don't think you're worth it, this whole reinvention process is not going to happen. You have to think you're worth the effort, or you're not going to do it. You have to love something more. And
Leeza,
really,
we're just out of time. I love it. Yes, your empowerment system. Listen, the book is Take 2, Your Guide to Creating Happy Endings and New Beginnings. It's at Amazon. You can find it everywhere the books are sold. We've come to the end of another hour of Provocative Enlightenment. I want to thank the team at Hay House Radio for making what we do on this show so pleasurable. And, of course, a big thank you to our guest and to all of you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed our show. We'll join us again next week, same time and same place. And if you have comments, remember to send them to me. Okay, until next time, wherever you are, remember, believing in yourself always matters.